As a licensed realtor in Florida, I get asked all the time, how much are closing costs? The actual closing costs will depend heavily on the property costs, associated fees, whether a licensed realtor is involved, and much more. However, a great rule of thumb is that the seller will pay between 5% and 10% of the overall home sale price. And that number is largely due to real estate commission, which can be up to 6% in the state of Florida. A buyer will pay between 1% and 3% of their total price for closing costs alone. So let's talk about sellers first. Closing costs for sellers in Florida are typically going to run between 5 and 10%, like I said before. If there are any outstanding amounts still owed on the property, including things like utility bills, homeowners association fees, these will likely be paid by the seller. Real estate agent commissions, as I mentioned before, this is usually between 5 and 6% of the sales price. And it's the fee for real estate agents to connect the seller to a buyer, help the client from start to finish during the transaction, as well as market their property in order to get it in front of as many potential buyers as possible. The next cost is title search fees, usually between $100 and $200. This covers the costs associated with checking a home's ownership history to make sure there aren't any title complications. Prorated taxes are the next thing. In Florida, property taxes are paid in arrears, meaning a seller owes property taxes for however much of time the taxable year they own the house, and that amount will also be prorated. The next is HOA and municipal lien searches. These costs are between $200 and $700 in total. This is to make sure the seller is in good standing with the homeowners association and there are no liens on the property. Transfer tax, also known as documentary stamp fees or doc stamps on the deed, is the next one that is most important. This price can vary, but is the cost paid to the local county when the deed transfer is recorded. For all Florida counties except Miami-Dade, this is 70 cents per $100 paid for the property. The last fee is title insurance. This fee is decided by the state and is based on the overall purchase price. This fee is negotiable, and the buyer sometimes pays it instead of the seller, depending on the deal. Like I said earlier, everything is negotiable. Now let's talk buyers. Are you out there looking for a home and just not sure if you have enough money to cover your closing costs? Well, think about it this way. The buyer's closing costs in Florida will add up to around 1 to 3% of the purchase price. Florida buyer closing costs include appraisal fees, loan origination fees, inspection fees, and recording fees. The appraisal fees only come if you're getting a mortgage. These are usually between $300 and $500. This determines the value of the home for the loan purpose. You cannot get a loan without an appraisal being done. The next is survey fees, normally between $300 and $500. Some lenders require surveys of a property before they'll release a loan to the buyer. It is also something that varies depending on the deal. Costs can vary based on the home location and size as well. The loan origination fees, these are between 0.5% and 1.5% of the sales price. They cover all associated loan fees such as prepaid interest, application fees, and loan origination fees. Next are the inspection fees, often between $300 and $600. This covers the costs associated with investigating a home before the deal is even closed. This inspection will provide a buyer with a report that they then can use to acquire insurance for the property. The last is recording fees. Florida counties require a fee for registering the sale and transfer of a property. So here's the bottom line. Closing costs in Florida can add a significant amount to the total price for a home for both the buyer and the seller, and should always be anticipated and discussed before closing a deal. However, keep in mind that very few elements in the closing costs are set in stone. Buyers and sellers can negotiate with one another to determine who pays for what if the situation calls for it. For instance, a seller will cover closing costs just to secure the sale. That's because the buyer still pays the bulk of the transaction costs. I mean, they are the one buying the home after all. Be sure to go over any questions you have regarding closing costs with your realtor, aka me, to avoid any unanticipated surprises. For more information regarding closing costs, please reach out. I'd love to help answer any questions you might have, buyers or sellers. And as always, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.